most of you use Instagram this day and age. Whether you have a big following or none at all, it's just something most of society uses. Apparently, the app has over 1 billion active users, which I find insane. I had about 300 followers at the time this happened. I live in a rural town, so I guess that's a lot for people around us. We don't know a lot of people outside of our districts. One night, watching a movie, my phone vibrated. It said a girl named Holly started following me on Instagram. So I opened up Instagram to check out her profile. And she was this really gorgeous blonde girl with like 5,000 followers. She had about 50 pictures. They were all spaced out realistically as far as the dates they were posted. Usually when I get followers like this, I'll check to make sure they're actually legit. She got like 600 likes per picture and a bunch of comments from guys I assume she didn't even know, leaving hearts and drooling emojis and whatever. Then, I kid you not, as I was going through her page, before I even followed her back, she DM'd me. "What?" She said, "Hey, I honestly don't do this a lot, but I thought you're really cute. To be honest, and not to sound like a douche, I am pretty fit, and I've been told I'm pretty attractive, and I have had some girls DM me in the past." So I followed her back and DM'd her the same, saying, "I think you're cute too." Then we went on to have a pretty long conversation, but it was going really well. We talked about fitness and what high schools we went to. It honestly was great. She gave me her number and we quickly got to setting up a meetup for the next night, which was a Friday night. We agreed we'd meet at a popular bar called Lucky's for a couple drinks. So Friday night, as the nerves are starting to kick in, I prepare myself for this little date. Never had I gone on a date straight from an Instagram DM, but this girl was downright gorgeous. I drove down to Lucky's and sat in my car in the parking lot, awaiting her call or text to let me know she was there. Eventually, she did text me, but not to let me know she was there. She said her car broke down and she needed a ride. I had to reread it a couple times to be sure I was reading it correctly. I tried calling her, but she didn't accept the call. She texted me describing her location. I didn't answer just yet. I took one more good look at her Instagram profile, and it was definitely real. She had friends tagged in her pictures, commenting on her pictures, so I knew I wasn't getting catfished. I texted back on my way, and off I went. I drove down the quiet side roads towards the location she described. I made it, but it was a weird spot for her car to have broken down. I saw a car pulled off to the side of the road next to the woods. Actually, there were woods on either side of this road. The car had its hood open, so it had to be her. I tried calling, but it didn't go through. I looked at my phone and realized I had no bars here. I parked my car on the other side of the road and got out. As I walked over to her car, which was a black Nissan Altima, I realized I couldn't see inside of it at all. The windows were completely tinted black. I lightly tapped on the window and waited. No one opened the door. So I walked around to the front hood just to see if she had attempted to do any work on the engine, I guess. As far as I could tell, she didn't. I was losing patience. I texted her, "Where are you? I'm about to leave." As I walked back to the side of the car, I noticed the driver's side window had now been cracked down. I knew for a fact they were all shut a minute ago. I called Holly's name, knowing someone had to be in the car now. As I walked a little closer to get a look inside, someone's fist reached out from the window, and they started signaling for me to come closer with their pointer finger. I felt my stomach drop, realizing it was definitely a man's hand. I told him in a shaky voice, getting lost as I ran back to my car. I sped away and made the first right turn off the street I could. Because of my constant glances in the rearview mirror, I eventually spotted a car with its lights off, trailing behind me. I thought to do the same. I turned off the lights on my car and started making as many turns as possible, and eventually I did lose the car. When I got home, the profile had already blocked me. But I found out at a later date that that profile was in fact real, but that the girl in the pictures was hacked by some creepy dude, and I wasn't even this only guy's victim of whatever plan he had. I just hope everyone else was as fortunate as me. I have an Instagram account with 1,100 followers. I had it set to public so anybody could come onto my page and look at my pictures, like them, and comment on them. So oftentimes I'd get people I didn't know liking my pictures and commenting on them. But one person stood out from the rest. I remember his first comment on one of my photos. It was a beach picture with one of my friends, so I was wearing a swimsuit. I had like 11 comments on it, but one of them was from somebody I didn't know. It was 3 flame emojis. I clicked the man's profile. He had 3 pictures, 80 followers, and he was following over 200 people, including me. All 3 of his pictures were of him, selfies, which didn't look right given that he looked like he was 40 or 50. I didn't mind though. It's expected to happen, to a certain extent. However, after that photo, it started becoming a thing where the man would just comment on every new photo I posted. One comment just said hot. This one was a little creepier, honestly. But then 2 days later, after posting my next picture, the man didn't comment this time. Instead, he sent me a direct message. It said, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you that you're beautiful, even though I'm like 30 years older than you, LOL. I responded, LOL, thanks. Which I'm surprised I did. Most people would have probably ignored it. He got back to me with, I would kill to meet a girl like you. I replied 10 minutes later with thanks, hoping he wouldn't say anything else. But he got back to me with, maybe one day I'll meet you, ... LOL. I didn't reply to that one. I found everything about the guy creepy. But I didn't block him. I figured, why get rid of a free follow and likes? I hadn't heard from him until I posted a new photo. This one of my sister Carol and I in front of our house. The man commented quickly on the photo, saying, "You and your sister are so cute." Now it was becoming too much for me, so I removed the comment and blocked him. Later in the day, Carol and I were home alone. I was in the bathroom doing my nails, getting ready to go out. I noticed a car I didn't recognize pull up in front of the house, through the window. But only the front. The rest of the car was covered by the bush that separates our front yard from the neighbors. The headlights shut off, but I didn't see anyone step out of the car. I took note of this only because we're on a dead-end block, so we don't get any through traffic. I shut the blind just because I was on full display. My sister was in her room on her laptop when the time came for me to leave. I didn't bother saying goodbye. Usually we just text each other that we're going out anyway. I went to my car, looking at the mysterious car which revealed to be a Maxima. The tinted windows mixed with the darkness of the night made it impossible to see inside of it. I got in my car, did a 3-point turn, and drove down the one-sided street to the nearest main road. I went to a social gathering at a friend's house. I wouldn't call it a party, but a decent amount of drinking went on. I cut myself off a little early since I knew I had to drive, but still, I'll admit, and I don't condone this kind of behavior whatsoever, I was pretty tipsy when I was driving home. It was only a 5-minute drive though. I pulled up to my house, and the first thing I noticed was the Maxima still parked out front. I needed to know whose car was that. I passed it slowly but still couldn't see inside of it. I parked and texted a few friends that I got home safe before stepping outside and walking up to my house. I was eyeing that car parked out front all the way up to the front door, where I dropped my keys, at which point, for whatever reason, I was too scared to bend over and look for them. Instead, I rang the doorbell like 5 times so my sister would answer quickly. She never answered the door though, so I was forced to get on my knees and look for the keys. They actually landed right on the doormat. I opened the door and went inside pretty swiftly, taking one last look at the Maxima before shutting the door. It was past midnight, but my sister was usually still up this late, so I dizzily but quietly walked up the stairs and down the hall towards her door. And oddly enough, it was wide open, but the lights were out. Maybe she went out for once. I crept into the room and my heart skipped a beat as my mind tried to put together the faint noise I was hearing. It took me a while to realize it was a whisper. The whisper of my sister was coming from the closet. The closet was cracked open, and I saw my sister peeping her eyes through the crack. She was visibly shaken and appeared to be crying. I knelt down next to her and opened the closet all the way, whispering, "What's going on?" She didn't say anything though. She just kept putting her finger on her lips, telling me to be quiet. I tugged at her arm to pull her out of the closet, and when she was out, I pushed the closet shut quietly. This revealed my sister's room again, as well as somebody clear as day standing direct center in my sister's room. I don't know if he was facing us or not, but that didn't matter, because we both wailed as we ran together. I felt the vibrations of the man stomping close behind us. We went straight for the car. I was able to lock the doors without even a second to spare before the man chasing us tried the door handle. When he realized it was locked, he started bashing at the window with his shoulder, all while my sister was screaming and wailing, making the matter worse. Through the intensity of the situation, I still was able to make the connection. It was the same man who had been stalking me on Instagram. I had to do a 3-point turn, but all the while I was honking the horn to get as much attention as possible from the neighbors. I think it worked because he got into his car, which turned out to be the Maxima, and did a 3-point turn as well. At first we thought he was tailing us, but instead he booked it past us and down another street to never be seen again. At that point, we just turned around and went back to the house. I called our parents and then the police. The police were able to find out how the man broke in through an upstairs window. He climbed up a ladder onto the awning and boosted himself up to the windowsill. I told the police about how he was stalking me on Instagram and must have somehow found my address when I posted my most recent picture with my sister, which included my house number. I tried to help them by giving the man's Instagram account, but when I went to the blocked account section, it was empty. That meant that the man already deleted his Instagram. Therefore, even if there is a way for Instagram to track deleted users, it didn't matter because I didn't remember the man's username. So, I hate to say it, but there was nothing the police could do, and I knew it. I've since set my Instagram to private and really only accept follow requests from people I know now. I'm also a lot more paranoid and wary of posting revealing photos. I came across something recently that has been freaking me the hell out. Before I get into my discovery, let me just get into a little backstory that makes the discovery even more disturbing. For the past few weeks or so, on several occasions, while either trying to sleep in my bed or doing something in my room with a light on at night, I would hear a single, faint, yet audible tap on my window. I hardly want to call it a tap because none of the sounds really resembled an intentional tap. It sounded more so like something accidentally being scraped or pressed against the glass very briefly. At first, I thought it was just bugs flying into the window, but as the same sound kept happening at least 2 or 3 times a week, I started to get freaked out by it. So I told my dad, and he of course told me it's nothing, probably just bugs, like I initially thought. So nothing happened for a few nights, but then I got a text from a friend. Well, not a friend, just some guy I used to have a class with who somehow coerced me into giving him my number. He said, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me. We used to have a class together. I just wanted to let you know about this. I stumbled upon it by accident." And if you're unaware of it, that's pretty disturbing. Then he added a link to the bottom of the message. I pressed it, and it took me to an Instagram page. The page was titled JP, Unofficial. Those were my initials. But that wasn't the first thing I noticed. The first thing I noticed was the profile picture, which was me. And then the 45 pictures uploaded to that account were all of me. They weren't like pictures that I took though. They were all candid. I mean, like, they were pictures I never even knew were taken. Some were of me at the beach. Some were of me sitting in my car. But the newer ones got even weirder. Some were of me in my backyard. And then the worst ones were the most recent. They were pictures of me in my room, taken from outside my window. Some of me sitting on my bed doing homework or texting. Others of me standing, with one even of me in my underwear. I felt sick. I felt like crying and throwing up. All of the pictures had at least 2 or 3 likes. Some had comments, but not comments pointing out how wrong this is. They were comments encouraging it, saying things like, "Go for it," or "hot," or "what I'd do if I could get my hands on her." The captions on the photos too, they were all things like, "the love of my life," or "she went to the beach today," or "I just like to watch her." My mouth was twitching as a tear rolled down my face. I was so disturbed I can't even describe the emotions I was feeling. And then there was a sound again at the window. This sound, the unintentional scrape or tap. And then it clicked. It made sense now. When I put 2 and 2 together, I simply snapped. I lost it and screamed louder than I'd ever screamed before. My dad came rushing in with open arms to hug me and ask what's wrong. I showed him the Instagram page and explained the taps at the window. Well, explained is a stretch. I was a mess and could barely speak clearly. My dad's expression went from gentle to horrified to downright angry. He rushed outside, screaming, making a scene for the neighbors, looking for the stalker. He then came inside and called the police. I gave the police the Instagram account and requested they track it as soon as possible. Law enforcement put the request into Instagram. By the time it was received, the account was deleted, but it didn't matter because Instagram was still able to recover the info, and the usage was traced to an old iPod Touch. Unfortunately, the device was untraceable. It was either destroyed or it had its Wi-Fi turned off permanently. My dad saw how messed up I was, and he plans on moving us out of the house within the month. Luckily, there haven't been any new sounds, but I've also made sure to keep all my blinds shut 24/7 and always make sure I'm not being tailed while driving. All I can think to say to everybody is keep your Instagram private and always be alert to your surroundings. I didn't go away to college, so meeting girls and overall socializing wasn't as spoon-fed to me as the kids who went away to party schools and prestigious universities. In my freshman year, I grew bored fairly quickly as my friend group had shrunken tremendously. Meeting people at what was basically a commuter college was next to impossible, unless you joined clubs or sports. So my main source of meeting girls, at least, was Tinder and Bumble, or Instagram. One day, I got a follow request from some very attractive girl named Miranda. I could tell she was attractive just based off her profile picture. I requested to follow her back, and when she instantly accepted my request, I started to look through her pictures a bit to make sure it wasn't a catfish. Her profile seemed real. She had around 400 to 500 followers. She only followed a few hundred people, and all her pictures had a lot of likes and comments. And then she DM'd me, and my face lit up. She DM'd me saying she found me on Tinder and thought I was cute, which, yes, I had my Instagram username and my Tinder bio at the time. She also had photos posted dated back to beyond a year prior, so everything checked out on my catfish radar. We chatted in the DMs for a few days. When she posted a new picture, I liked it and commented on it as she asked me to. I just put down a couple fire emojis. When I opened my first response to the depressed post, she liked it, of course. I checked some of the other comments and they were also from guys gassing her up, throwing her compliments left and right. Clearly, I wasn't the only guy talking to her, or at least trying to. Well, one night we struck up a conversation, once again, still in the DMs. I told her I had the house to myself that night and figured I'd be risky and invite her over. She seemed pretty open to it. I just tried my best to keep it as lighthearted as possible. I gave her my address just to ask her how long of a drive it would be. She said 10 minutes. I then confirmed if she was coming or not, and she replied, "Yeah, I'll come." Then she asked me how old I was, and I said 18. She replied that she was 19, but this conflicted with something that I remember. She replied to one of the many other men commenting on one of her posts. His comment was something like, "Damn girl, how old are you?" And she replied 25. The guy she was responding to was some bald guy who looked to be in his 50s. This got me suspicious. I started analyzing the people who were commenting on her posts a little more, and I realized they were all guys. There were no female friends of hers commenting supportive stuff that you'd see on basically any other girl's Instagram, and most of the comments seemed to be just old creepy dudes telling her how sexy she was. I then looked for any pictures of her with other girls, maybe some friends tagged in a picture, but no. Any pictures of her with other girls in it, the girls were not tagged in, and there were no comments from any of the girls in the pictures. This was starting to scream catfish, so I blocked the account. Not long after, talking within 10 minutes, I started getting spammed with DMs from 3 random accounts. They all had profile pictures, but all of them had less than 50 followers. They all appeared to be fake, and they were DMing me threats about how I shouldn't have done that. I gave in and replied to one of them, and instantly it replied back, "Unblock Miranda." I blocked that account as well, and went to unsend all my recent DMs to that Miranda account, specifically the one with my address in it. I counted myself lucky I didn't give the account my phone number or any other info. I also set my Instagram profile to private. After that ordeal, I ended up trying to get anyone else to come over and take advantage of having the house to myself, but eventually I gave up and went to bed. I had trouble sleeping 90% of the time, and this night was no exception. So, after I'd say at least an hour and a half of trying to fall asleep, I heard noises from outside in the living room. Now, this was in February, so it was freezing out and the heat was on full blast, so there were always ticking and clicking sounds from all the baseboard heaters. But a couple noises sounded a little different, like louder. I didn't go check though, and while each clicking clack from around the house was making me look over into my dark room, making sure no one was there, I eventually somehow fell asleep. But not for long. I woke up and it was still dark in the room. I knew something woke me up, like how sometimes you hear a sound in your sleep and it's a delayed reaction before you wake up a few seconds later. Well, that's what happened here. I sat up in my bed, the clicking of the heater still filling the room. I looked in the far corner of my room, and at first I didn't believe what I was seeing. I looked closer and could see it better. There was a person in the corner of the room, and I swear I could see their grinning face. I was so scared in that moment, I got up from my bed, unable to even scream. I ran all the way outside into the snow on my bare feet, and I rang the neighbor's bell 1,000,000 times. While in there, I basically cried to them that someone was in the house, and I used their phone to call 911. When police searched the entire house, they didn't find anyone. The back door and side door were both locked, and so were most of the windows. The only possibility of someone getting in would have been through one of the backyard windows, which was left unlocked. The police officers comforted me in letting me know that it may have just been a hallucination, which I learned through research can happen in the moments after just waking up for some people. Sleeping in the house alone the rest of the night was the most anxious thing I'd ever done after that. But I really won't ever know for sure if what I saw was really just a hallucination, or if, God forbid, whoever was running that Miranda Catfish account was in my house. A few months after this incident, that account was either deleted by the user or taken down by Instagram. It no longer exists. Instagram is my favorite time-waster app. I spend a good chunk of my free time browsing it. I've gotten my fair share of creepy DMs. I've learned to ignore them, so when I got a notification from Instagram that some random account requested to DM me, I didn't sweat it. I did, however, just open the DM because I always do out of curiosity. The DM was a link to another Instagram profile named Perfect Always with a Z. I pressed the link and it opened this page with a bunch of pictures of girls, like young girls, seemingly varying in ages from 13 to 20. As I continued to scroll through the account, I picked up on an unsettling fact, that all the pictures seemed to have been taken in secret, like one girl was on a school bus, one was sitting on a park bench, one was taken from behind a bush of a girl walking on a sidewalk, one was taken of a group of girls at a college campus. Expecting to find perverted comments on the posts, all I found were positive comments like, "Keep up the good work," and "Nice." There were also some comments with random numbers like 500 and "That's it." And every single account that commented appeared to be spam accounts, like no profile pictures and no followers. It was a weird and creepy account, so I reported it and sent a link of it to my friend Allie. Then I went about my business. I was at school when all of this happened, so I couldn't give it too much attention to begin with. It wasn't until after school, when I got home, that Allie finally texted back, saying, "OMFG, who did that? That's crazy." I replied, "I know, it's so creepy." She seemed more concerned and shocked than I was expecting her to be. She replied saying, "You need to report that to the police right away." I replied back, "Why me? That's not exactly my problem." She replied back with nothing but question marks mixed with exclamation points. So I said, "Why are you freaking out?" She said, "Why don't you care about someone posting pictures of you on their Instagram?" My heart sank. I immediately rushed to click the link again and view the profile. This time there were 2 new photos uploaded to the page. One of a girl in the passenger seat of an SUV, and one a picture of me walking home. It was taken from inside a car parked on the side of the road. I remembered seeing that car, and I remembered noticing someone sitting in it. This just seemed unreal. I called Allie at once, freaking out. I told her why I didn't understand it first and explained how some random account DM'd me the link. Allie told me to report it to Instagram and the police. I told her I reported it to Instagram already and told her to do the same. I stayed locked in my room talking to Allie for at least an hour as I was home alone. The next time I refreshed that Instagram page, it said, "This page does not exist." First thought, okay, it blocked me, so I asked Allie to refresh it as well, and it said the same thing for her. We both used our Finsta accounts to confirm that it was removed, and it was. The account no longer appeared. I still don't know if it was taken down by Instagram or if the creator of the account deactivated it. I also have no idea what those numbers in the comments meant. Either way, it seemed like one big setup thing, and I'm scared to know any other details about what was going on with that Instagram page. This situation happened in my first year of high school. I was 15 years old and lived pretty far from school, which resulted in me taking public transportation to and from there. My Instagram was set to public back then, and I never really cared much about who followed me, which, in retrospect, being a young teen, I should have. My page was pretty standard. I was visible in most of my posts, posing by myself or with a couple of my friends, for the most part. I also post a lot of my story, which, for those of you who don't know, allows users to share photos and videos to their story for 24 hours. In those stories, I would sometimes include a shot of me waiting for the bus or at the subway with music playing in the background. I remember posting such one day and randomly looking at my stories and seeing who viewed them. I had around 120 views, most of them from people I knew. One account in particular stuck out. The profile pics showed an unfamiliar middle-aged man. The selfie was taken at a weird close-up angle, like those cliché parent selfies. He had seen every one of my stories posted. I didn't really think that much of it and continued about my day. Hours later, when I was nearing sleep at around 2 a.m., I got notifications that that same man had requested to DM me, followed me, and liked all my posts. I had about 12 posts, so it wasn't a crazy amount of notifications. I opened his DM and it just said, "Hey," with a smiley face. I definitely found this crazy weird, so I didn't respond and checked his profile. His username was odd, Sam with a bunch of numbers. He only had one post, the weird angled selfie with 2 likes. I finally got a decent look at his face. He was pale and bald with dark tinted sports glasses. He seemed to be wearing a ripped white t-shirt. He had 5 followers and was following around 400 people, which mostly consisted of teenage girls, young women, and a few celebrities. Realizing what an actual creeper this guy was, I blocked him, plain and simple. In the morning, I got off the subway stop that's next to my school and took a seat on a bench in the middle of the platform to adjust my backpack. Upon doing this, I felt someone watching me. The platform was packed with people, so I thought maybe it was just my anxiety. I rose up and turned to find the now familiar, middle-aged creep staring at me. His eyes were a glossy blue color, sunken and droopy. "Look at this," he said, pointing to my mouth. He stood a good 20 feet from me, just gawking with an angered frown. I felt a strong urge to throw up and cry at the same time. My skin prickled and my whole body filled with fear. Everything I was feeling was multiplied by 1,000 as I realized he was slowly walking towards me. No one paid him any attention. No one batted an eye, and I remember breathing hard and heavily, wishing someone would pick up on what was happening. I turned and speed walked around and past people trying to lose him, though with each step I took back, he took 2 steps forward. He was getting a lot closer to me by the second. It was all happening so fast, and I honest to God didn't know whether to continue to run or attempt to draw attention to him. I ran into a woman with a seemingly friendly face on the stairs, and that's when I decided on the latter. I told her that guy in white is following me. As I spoke, I heard my own voice quiver, and that's when I realized how afraid and panicked I actually was. She noticed the man I was referring to at the bottom of the steps, and right away she called him out. She told him to stop following me or she'd call the police. Her shouts made him freeze as others began to stop and take note of the situation. She stood protectively in front of me, waiting for his next move. I took the opportunity to snap a quick pic of his face that I would later use to report him. In my head, all I thought was, he's not going to do anything with people watching me. He can't be that stupid. And I was right. He turned around and got on the next subway train. The woman walked me to my school, and on the way I couldn't help but wonder how that man could have possibly found me. And then I remembered. I posted a story of the subway stop I got off. That realization alone made my skin crawl and taught me a very important lesson: to never reveal your specific location to your public social media. After the woman walked me to my school, I thanked her and actually gave her a hug. I don't know what I would have done if she hadn't stepped in. I wasn't brave enough to say anything to the man, so frozen in fear, but that woman was, and I'm forever grateful for her. And I hope that if anyone is ever in her position, that they will step in and use their voice to help. The internet and social media can be a very dangerous thing. This personal experience of mine is a prime example of what I mean. I've had an Instagram account for like 7 years now. I used to post on it a lot more when I was younger. These days, I really don't post at all, and I only open the app like once a day just to browse my friends' posts or whatever. Well, recently I lost my phone. I figured it was time for a new one anyway, though. I did try the whole Find My iPhone thing, but it said my phone was like 30 miles away. It just wasn't worth it for that old phone. Moving on, one day not too long ago, I got a DM from a kid from high school that I hadn't spoken to in years. In fact, I didn't even follow him. I peeped what he DM'd me, and it was a heads-up message. He was bringing it to my attention that someone was using my pictures on a fake Instagram account. He shared the profile in question with me, so I had a look and realized he was right. There was this entire account pretending to be me, just using a different name. There were pictures I'd never even posted on Instagram before on there, pictures exclusive to my old phone. My head was spinning. I actually felt sick over this. I immediately assumed whoever found my old phone somehow bypassed the password. The account had 50 followers and it was following around 150 people. The posts all got like 5-10 likes. Most had no comments, but some had basic comments like a flame emoji or whatever. This account was literally pretending to be me. It had a story posted, so I went to check that, and I felt even more sick to my stomach. It was a boomerang, panning from my house to my car over and over, as if they were showing off both. A boomerang is basically just a looping 2-second video that goes back and forth from one point to another. This meant whoever was doing this knew where I lived and had any other information I may have still had on that phone. The story was posted only a few hours ago. I immediately thought to go to find my iPhone settings and turn on lost mode. I regretted not doing that the second I lost that phone now. When I tracked my old phone one last time, I was in for another horrible surprise. It said the location of my old phone was right outside our house somewhere. There's a lot of space between houses in our gated community, so there was no mistaking that that person was still out there on the property somewhere. I turned on lost mode on the old phone, then ran downstairs to get my roommate Corey's attention. It seemed he was already occupied, though, by his husky barking at something in the backyard. Corey was standing by the door watching his dog. I explained in as few words as possible because I felt the situation was dire. The boxer had made it inside when I opened the door and was lying on top of the sack. We stepped out into the yard together to call his dog in. He was out in the grass, barking rather viciously at someone or something out of sight. The dog was barely visible because it was so dark out. We went together to grab the dog by the collar, and as we got hold of him, we saw someone in the bushes run away into the patch of trees that separated our house from the next house. It was like a jump scare moment in a horror movie. That dark figure I saw run into the trees had to be the stalker pretending to be me on Instagram. I just knew it. We brought the dog inside and locked the door. You may ask, why didn't we let the dog chase down whoever it was? That's because Corey's dog is all bark, no bite. He wouldn't ever harm a fly. At some point in the middle of the night, the dog started barking again, downstairs by the front door. This was very unusual behavior, so Corey and I both checked out the windows and then stepped outside. It was the most scared I had ever felt in my life, standing on the front porch, looking out into the dark night, knowing someone was out there probably watching us. We went back inside, and for the rest of the night, silence. I think whoever had my phone turned it off or smashed it after I put it in lost mode to avoid it being tracked any further. But I say this because it would no longer update the location. I checked everywhere by the last known location, but it didn't turn up. After DMing that account that I knew who they were and was filing a report to the police, the account disappeared only a few minutes later. I don't think it was deactivated. I think it was completely deleted. My threat seemed to work. Like I said, this was recently though, and I'm still staying very aware of my surroundings. If you're looking into creating a YouTube channel of your own, but have no idea where to even start as far as learning video editing, then Skillshare may be the answer to your problem. Skillshare is an online learning community for people who want to learn pretty much any skill they want. From the thousands of available educational video classes, the courses are available through subscription and are taught by industry leaders and working professionals. Some of the different class types include film and video editing, photography, music, animation, and web development. So if you aspire to be a YouTuber, or maybe you want to create your own website, but don't feel you have the skills necessary to get started doing what you're interested in, you'll undoubtedly be able to learn in a fun and effective manner through Skillshare. On top of this, Skillshare is ad-free, so you can stay in the zone and avoid distracting commercials while you're picking up new skills. New classes are added each week, so there's never a shortage of new things to learn. So click the link in the description to join, and if you're one of the first 1,000 people to join using this link, you'll get a 1-month free trial for Skillshare.